What's good, ladies and gents? Welcome to the MKO Pugilism Boxing channel, where we talk all things boxing. Do remember to like and subscribe if you're new, and yeah, leave your comments below about the content of this video. Yeah, let's talk about it. So this is another big weekend of boxing. We really are spoiled for choice as boxing fans, and this weekend we got Richard Riakporhe, or should I say, sorry, Chris Billam Smith versus Richard Riakporhe, as Chris Billam Smith makes another defense of his WBO World Cruiserweight title that he won off as Lawrence Okoli. And this is also an interesting one because it's a rematch. These guys fought each other back in 2019 with Richard Riakporhe getting the win on points. And that was a very hard, grueling fight. To revisit it, it was tough. It was tough. I mean, it was one of those fights where both men got tagged. Both men took some heavy shots. I think Richard Riakporhe just basically he just edged Chris Billam Smith in that fight. It wasn't one of those where it was a complete whitewash or where one man was dominant over the other. It was a back and forth battle. Both men had their successes, but Richard Riakporhe just had that little bit of an edge, and he managed to take it on points. There's no question about that, no controversy about that. But since that time, both men moved on with their careers. I would say that Chris Billam Smith is ahead of Richard Riakporhe as far as career progress because in spite of the loss, he was able to go on and fight in another big fight against Lawrence Okoli. And that was, for me, that was a standout performance for Chris Billam Smith. That was an impressive one. I mean, Lawrence Okoli was very disappointing on the night, but Chris Billam Smith, he boxed well and he kind of ragdolled Lawrence Okoli and made him look amateurish in some ways. So Chris Billam Smith is kind of the man that's ahead of in terms of these two regarding their progress. He's the world champion. He's kind of a step above where Richard Riakporhe is as far as their career progress goes. However, Richard Riakporhe, he'll still go into this. He is going into this still full of confidence because he knows that 5 years ago, I fought this guy and I beat him. I managed to get the better of him, so he'll still feel that he's the better fighter going into this. As far as last performances, I think in terms of last performances, you had Billam Smith versus that Masternak, and it was quite a poor performance by Chris Billam Smith. I mean, it was impressive in the sense that he got the TKO. He sort of touched Masternak to the body, beat him with a body shot. I think he broke his rib or cracked his rib, and the guy couldn't continue. So at least on paper, it's a TKO victory. It was a good victory, but what happened in the actual fight was a different story. I mean, he was being comprehensively outboxed and he was losing that fight until he turned it around. So there's kind of good and bad that you can take from his last performance. I mean, it's good in the sense that yes, he got the victory, he got the TKO, he made the guy quit, but it's bad in the sense that he was getting hit quite a lot. He was having to take a lot of punishment in there. So there's good and bad, but overall, in terms of winning rounds, he was losing, on the cards, I believe, but he managed to pull it out. So that's kind of a worrying, kind of a concern for Chris Billam Smith going into this because you're coming against Richard Riakporhe, which admittedly, the opposition, the last fight wasn't all that great, wasn't anyone with any great state. I think that guy also retired in a corner or something. And yeah, so he's coming off of that stoppage. That was, I think, around 7 months ago that Riakporhe fought. He looked pretty good. Wins by the stoppage. And I think of the two performances, you got to say that Riakporhe's was better. Admittedly, it was against a poorer level of opposition, so you got to factor that in. But yeah, going into this one, I think again on Saturday we're going to get another quite close fight, kind of nip and tuck fight. I mean, it's in Riakporhe's hometown, in his in Crystal Palace, his football ground. So that's going to be a factor here probably. And I think that's going to give him a bit of a extra lift, an extra boost. And I think this is going to be one of those fights where it's going to be close. It's going to be pretty nip and tuck. But I see the same sort of result as the first fight. I think Richard Riakporhe will sort of pile up the points, and I think he's going to be able to catch, and he's going to be able to counter Chris Billam Smith with powerful shots. And I just worry about CBS, because I think the one thing about him is he really doesn't move his head at all. And I think defensively he is quite vulnerable. I think he does take too many punches. So I just think this is going to be one of those where it may be close for the first half of the fight, first 6 rounds or whatever, nip and tuck. Billam Smith taking a few rounds, Riakporhe taking a few rounds, and I can see it being quite even. But then I can see Richard Riakporhe sort of walking away with it, landing, consecutive shots, consecutive power shots. And I see Richard Riakporhe winning this fight, most likely on points. But if he puts them together well enough, then he may even be able to get Chris Billam Smith out of there. But I think while the fight lasts, it is going to be close, because with Chris Billam Smith, he's very determined, he's very hungry, and he'll have a chip on his shoulder too, because he lost the last fight, and he'll be looking to get his revenge. So he'll have a chip on his shoulder. He'll be determined. He's not going to want to quit. He's not going to want to give up. But for me, I just think Richard Riakporhe is going to edge this one out, most probably on points. But I think he has got the power to stop Chris Billam Smith if he puts the punches together. But yeah, it's going to be a good fight. Definitely going to be a good fight. It's one that I will say that I'm looking forward to seeing. And yeah, let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section below. Do you agree? Do you think Riakporhe's going to take it? Or do you think Chris Billam Smith will retain his title? I mean, as I say, I wouldn't be surprised if Billam Smith came up with the right game plan and was able to do it. But as I say, it's just the lack of the defensive frailties for me, and the lack of head movement, and defensively I think he's just is going to ship too much punishment here. That's just my view. But let me know yours in the comment section below. Until next time, it's MKO Pugilism, over and out.